Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're heading back to a really formative time in New York City, the 1920s, the
Yeah,
30s.
Prohibition era.
Exactly. And we're going to unpack the story of the Bugs and Meyer Mob. We've got this document, bugsandmeyermob.pdf, and the plan is to give you, the learner, a solid understanding of this early gang.
Right. Who they were, what they were doing,
Hmm.
and why they mattered,
Yeah.
how they fit into the bigger picture of organized crime evolving.
Absolutely. We're talking Manhattan, Lower East Side primarily. Prohibition is, like you said, just kicking off, creating this huge vacuum.
A gold mine, really, for anyone willing to step outside the law. And right there at the start, you've got these two key figures,
Yeah.
very young.
Ben Siegel and Meyer Lansky. It's kind of amazing thinking they were, what, teenagers basically, when they started putting this together.
Yeah, right as Prohibition hit.
And you immediately see that dynamic. The source points out Siegel, the muscle, the impulsive one.
LeBron.
Right. And Lansky, the strategist, the brains. It's a classic combo, isn't it? You see it again and again.
It really is. And the document mentions Lansky and his initial group were sort of a protective society at first.
Oh, interesting. Not just about crime from day one.
Well, not solely. There was this real need, apparently, for the Jewish community to, defend itself. You had established Italian gangs, Irish gangs.
Territorial stuff.
Exactly. So the early crew included Lansky's brother, Jacob, Meyer Wassel, Mike Wassel, Samuel Red Levine, Irving Tabo Sandler, Joseph Doc Stacher. This shared background, needing mutual defense, that seems like the initial glue.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, how did the main two, Lansky and Siegel, actually hook up? The source seems to have a couple of versions floating around.
Yeah, there's the more dramatic one involving Charles Luciano.
Lucky Luciano, even back then.
Apparently, some kind of dispute over a prostitute. Lansky steps in between Siegel and Luciano. Quite the introduction if it happened that way.
Definitely paints a picture, but Lansky himself told a different story.
He did, yeah. In, authorized biographies. He remembered meeting Siegel on a street corner, Lower East Side. There was a craps game. It got heated. Police showed up.
Okay.
And Lansky actually made Siegel drop a gun he was brandishing.
Wow. So not exactly friendly at first.
Apparently, Siegel was furious, lost his weapon. But, somehow that confrontation led to them clicking, becoming close friends, partners. Funny how things work out sometimes.
From a street corner dice game argument to the Bugs and Meyer Mob. Wild.
Okay.
Let's talk about that name. Bugs. Our source is pretty clear Siegel wasn't a fan.
Not at all. Bugsy came later, and he hated it. Originally, in the neighborhood, he was known by the Yiddish word che.
Meaning?
Something like untamed, animal, wild beast. You combine that with his temper.
Which was legendary, right?
Oh, yeah. Short fuse.
Yeah.
The saying was he was crazier than a bedbug, hence Bugsy. But, yeah, the document stresses he loathed being called that.
Interesting. You'd think a tough nickname would be a badge of honor in that world. What do you think that says about him? Maybe he saw himself differently.
Could be. Maybe he wanted respect, not just fear, based on being seen as, irrational or just purely violent. An image thing, perhaps.
Okay, so the gang's formed. Lansky and Siegel are leading it. Siegel's got this nickname he hates. What were they actually doing? The list of activities in our source is, well, it's pretty extensive.
It covers the bases, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Murder, obviously. Gambling. Bootlegging, huge drink prohibition, as we said.
Right, the illegal booze trade was massive.
Massive. Plus theft, racketeering, extortion. They weren't specialists, let's say. They diversified their portfolio of crime.
And pretty quickly, they start linking up with bigger names. The source mentions Luciano again and Frank Costello.
Yeah, aligning with guys like Luciano and Costello, who are also on the rise, was smart, very strategic. And the source notes they were actively recruiting expert gunmen.
So building capacity for violence right from the start.
Absolutely. Building a serious crew. They were also into car theft early on. And later you see guys like Abner Longi, Zwillman joining, his brother Irving, Mo Sedway, Louis Lepke Bruchalter.
Lipke. Wow. Okay. So the network is expanding significantly.
Definitely. Their reach grew. They were into protection rackets, hijacking trucks, think valuable goods, not just booze contract murder, running gambling games.
And acting as muscle for Costello, even outside New York.
Yeah, down Louisiana, apparently. They had ambition. The source says their goal was to destroy or subordinate the existing Italian-American gangs.
How? Just through violence.
Violence, yeah, assassinations. But also mentions political bribery. So using multiple angles to gain dominance.
And that ambition meant a reputation for, well, brutality.
Extreme violence, yeah.
Yeah.
The source says they extorted rivals, sure, Irish and Italian, businesses, gamblers, but also people in their own community. Jewish moneylenders, storekeepers. Nobody was off limits if there was profit.
Ruthless, and they had a front operation.
A car and truck rental garage. Perfect cover. Also doubled as a warehouse for stolen goods, according to the documents. Very practical.
And they worked closely with other crews too, like Joe Adonis's mob.
Yeah, frequent collaborations with the Broadway mob, especially through the 20s. It shows how interconnected these groups were becoming, even early on, part of that Luciano network.
The police view of them. Vicious is the word used.
Yeah.
And that quote from the detective about Siegel, that he seemed to enjoy the suffering, that's chilling.
It really is. It goes beyond just business, doesn't it?
Mm.
That kind of alleged sadism, enjoying the violence itself, likely fueled their fearsome reputation. It makes them valuable in a dark way to people building larger criminal empires.
You mean people like Luciano?
Exactly. That reputation for ruthlessness, that willingness to inflict pain, it's almost a prerequisite for rising in that world, especially when bigger changes are afoot.
Which brings us to the Castelmaris War. Our deep dive shows they weren't just observers. They played a, crucial role in reshaping the whole mafia structure.
Absolutely pivotal. This was a major turning point. Lansky and Siegel sided with Luciano against the old guard, the Mustache Pete's.
Guys like Joe Masseria and Salvatore Maranzano.
Right. Luciano wanted to modernize, create the American mafia as we kind of came to know it. More businesslike, less tied to the old Sicilian ways. Lansky and Siegel were key allies in that power struggle.
The source even puts Siegel at the scene of Masseria's murder in 1931, along with other big names.
Yeah, Adonis, Albert Anastasia, Vito Genovese. That hit was a major event, clearing the way for Luciano. Siegel's alleged presence shows how trusted and central he was to Luciano's plans.
And Lansky wasn't just watching from the sidelines either, was he? He helped set up the hit on the next boss, Maranzano.
He did. After Maranzano double-crossed Luciano, Lansky was instrumental in his removal. The source says he recruited the hit team Jewish associates, importantly.
Why was that important?
Because Maranzano wouldn't expect non-Italians. They could get close.
Mm-hmm.
The team, supposedly including Siegel again, Red Levine, Bo Weinberg, they went right into Maranzano's office. A very bold move.
So by helping eliminate Masseria and then Maranzano, they basically helped Luciano create the modern mafia structure, the commission.
Pretty much. They helped clear the path for that new era. Less infighting, supposedly. More nationwide cooperation between families. A more corporate structure for crime.
And part of that new structure involved enforcement, which leads to murder, incorporated.
Right. After the war, Lansky and Luciano pushed for this idea of a central enforcement arm for their new national crime syndicate, a way to handle hits professionally, efficiently, across family lines.
A specialized hit squad, essentially.
That's what it became. The press called it Murder, Inc. And our source connects the Bugs and Meyer Mob directly to it.
How so?
Well, given their background and expertise in violence, several members served as advisors or actual hitmen for Murder, Inc., especially when Lepke Buhalter, their old associate, and Albert Anastasia were running it.
So the skills honed in the Bugs and Meyer Mob became foundational for the syndicate's enforcement arm.
You could definitely see it that way, like a proving ground for some of the era's most notorious killers.
Okay, so let's try and summarize what we've learned from this deep dive. The Bugs and Meyer Mob, clearly a really significant early New York gang.
Absolutely. You see the leadership dynamic, Siegel's impulsiveness, Lansky's strategy, complementary in a way.
You see their rise from, like you said, a neighborhood protection group
Born out of necessity almost.
to this major criminal force involved in pretty much everything illegal at the time and known for extreme violence.
And then their role in that huge shift, the Castelmaris War,
Yeah.
helping Luciano establish the modern mafia, and that direct link to Murder, Inc.
It's quite a trajectory. Ambition, violence, strategy, and a lasting impact, really.
Definitely. They weren't just another street gang. They were players in a much bigger transformation of organized crime in America. They helped write the blueprint in some ways.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Wow.
How those early gangs, shaped by specific times like Prohibition and specific places like the Lower East Side, really set the stage. And that dynamic between Siegel and Lansky, the brawn and brains, how much did that specific partnership influence not just their gang, but the whole direction crime took?
It's a great question. How much does individual personality and relationship shape these large historical forces? And maybe what echoes of their methods, their brutality, their ambition do we still see or perhaps see differently in organized crime today? Something to ponder.